This is by far the messiest episode of The Family Chantel. The way that I needed an extended version of every chaotic scene. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. I'm Nikki. If you're new here, I post recaps and commentary on all things 90 Day Fiancé universe, including The Family Chantel. That sounds like the content that you like, that you're obsessed with. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of my videos. Let's jump right in. So we catch up with Chantel. She's walking her dog. She's taking this opportunity to have a little heart-to-heart with her brother River. Y'all, isn't it crazy that we've literally watched River grow up on the show? But one thing about River, he has hated Pedro's guts from day one. He is a super protective little bro. So Chantel is spilling the tea, right? She's like, New York was not the trip that I thought it was going to be. I went on that terrible date. She's like, while I was there, Pedro's like a cockroach. He keeps coming up. You know, she's trying to get past the divorce, but in comes the post up with him and Coraima. And the whole thing has her feeling humiliated. One thing is clear after that NYC trip is that dating is going to be hard. Like, Chantel is panicking because she's like, American guys take a bit of time to want to seal the deal and get married. She's like, I'm 32. So she's doing the math of how long it may take for someone to potentially propose and then how long it will take for her to potentially start a family. And she's like, I'm going to be old. And that's not guaranteed because she doesn't have any good prospects. So she's panicking. This convo culminates in her deciding that she is going to consider freezing her eggs, which I think is a great idea. I think that, if kids are non-negotiable for you, then you have to look out for yourself. And I think with this whole divorce process, it's a way for her to have some sort of control. But this scene with River, it seems like insignificant, but I can see what they're doing. They're trying to just show us that the families are fed up with this divorce. So we start with River, and River is, pretty bummed that he's seeing his sister just feel so defeated. He hates that she feels like she's running out of time. And in a way, he's like, I wish that I could go back in time and stop her from making this huge mistake. And that feeling is shared by both parties at this point, But she tells him that her friend Obed is coming to town and that he wants to see her. If you guys remember my guy Obed is someone that Chantel met through the Pedro's family, right? So Obed used to be friends with all of them, Lydia, Pedro, and Nicole. And somewhere along the way, they had a big falling out. And in the initial seasons of The Family Chantel and 90 Day Fiancé, we saw that Obed would give Chantel warnings. He was the one that told Chantel they plotted to get Pedro with an American. This was part of the plan all along. You're not special. Watch your back. So Chantel's stance on this is he didn't tell me too much because he didn't want to be a homewrecker of sorts. But now that he knows that Chantel and Pedro are not together, she's like, I can't wait to get the real story, to get all of the information that he knows. Next scene is with Scott and Lydia. And the only reason I'm going to cover these two is because they were actually very entertaining in this episode. And you'll see why. So Scott is telling Lydia about his confrontation with Pedro. Ended up in a fist fight, showing her his head bruises. And he's like tender as she's touching him. And she is laughing. Honestly, she looks a bit flattered that they fought over her. And she's like, yeah, this is normal. It sounds like Pedro avenged me. And Scott is like, you're not bothered that your boyfriend and your son fought? He's like laughing because he's like, she is so nonchalant about this. It doesn't make sense. But Lydia is still on this fantasy ride where she's like, yeah, I mean, it's like the movies. He's fighting for my honor. And Scott's whole vibe, really, he seems like a fetishy guy. Like he's going after these, Latina women. Not saying you can't have a preference, but I feel like the way he handles this whole situation is very problematic. He's just like, she's dysfunctional, but I'm gonna get with the crazy. And I was like, okay. And then it gets worse. Because then you quickly get to see that this isn't because he's liking Lydia. It's not because he's even in lust with Lydia. This is now revenge. This is now another pissing contest between him and Pedro. He tells Lydia in her face, he's gonna learn to love me. Let's make some Pedros tonight. It's so messy. And if my suspicion of him treating Lydia as a conquest was ever in doubt, he confirms it to the camera. That man literally said, this is now revenge sex. He does not want Lydia. He wants to rub it in Pedro's face. It's so gross because Lydia is a terrible person, don't get me wrong, but even she doesn't deserve this. Then the next scene is of Lydia at her home and Pedro confronts her because Pedro's like, where were you last night? And she's like, I stayed up late talking to Scott. Talking? Okay. But this is where Lydia gets Pedro's version of the fight. And she tells Pedro that Scott told her that it was Pedro being the aggressor, but Scott did mention that it was a physical fight, like between both of them. I just think that she was so wrapped up in it that she didn't hear that part. Or I don't know if she's just enjoying like poking Pedro. It's very weird. It's very Oedipus-y, I don't know. Very Oedipus Rex vibes. And Pedro is pissed because he's like, my mom is willingly letting this guy make her look stupid. But again, she's just like sitting back, enjoying that her son is, trying to defend her. But then, quickly, it becomes clear that Scott left a big chunk of the story out, which I had forgotten about. Pedro pulls out his phone and shows Lydia the videos that he has of Scott talking to the girls at the pool. And now, looking at the videos, they look pretty harmless. He just looks like he's talking to other guests. But knowing what we know about Scott, yeah, he is trying to get it in with people. He is trying to get people's numbers. And Lydia doesn't like that. She feels like they should be exclusive. So she sees it and she's getting fired up. While I was watching this, I was like, I feel like she's pretty gullible. Let's see how he spins it. Like, let's see what happens. So more on that soon. When we get to that, we see Chantel finally see Obed. And so it's funny because when they sit down, Obed is the one telling Chantel, I need all the tea. He's like, give me all the tea on the divorce. And I'm like, sir, we want your tea. But Chantel still spills. Tells him how things ended, how she believes that Pedro allegedly cheated on her, their whole marriage, and that she has a suspicion that he was also cheating with his boss. And Obed is like, oh, no way. And she tells him, she's like, everything you said to me back then, like, it's true. So then she tells him, she was like, and then I saw him post that picture with Coraima. And Obed flat out says, oh, that's not news. Like, they've been friends since high school and they've been hooking up since then. And that shook Chantel. Because it's one thing when you suspect something, but getting that confirmation, it hurts. Especially because Pedro lied to her over and over again. One, remember how he and his family claimed that he had never been with anyone before Chantel? That was clearly a lie. But also, every time he would go to the Dominican Republic and would hang out with Coraima, and Chantel would be like, I feel uncomfortable by this, he would gaslight her. Like, he would make her believe that what she was feeling, what she was seeing, like, she was making it up. And here is the confirmation that he was lying. And of course, this makes Chantel go on a bit of a spiral of like, wow, like everything we lived was a lie. And it only gets worse. Because Obed says that Pedro went out of his way to ridicule her and didn't defend her when other people ridiculed her. So Obed recalls the first day that they met. They were, I guess, out in the Dominican Republic, and Pedro had brought her around with a bunch of people, including Nicole, and apparently, like, I guess, I don't know if Chantel had stepped away or something, but they were making fun of her appearance. They were making fun of her accent, the way she spoke Spanish, and that Pedro didn't defend her. There's so much to unpack in that. First of all, this is like the umpteenth example that we've been hearing of Pedro making Chantel feel like she's some fugly, ugly girl. Chantel looks great. And even if she didn't, she doesn't deserve that. But it's just so wild to me that this collective of people have been able to break down a girl like that to feel like she's some raggedy ass woman. It's so crazy. You have to break someone down to make them feel that way. And I would imagine that after years of having your partner making you feel like you're ugly and then constantly hearing it from the people around him, like, that can't feel good. That event, like, I would imagine that that eventually would get to you even if you don't want it to. I also think it's just so wild because we see time and time again how there's so many people that get on 90 Day Fiancé and don't bother to learn the other person's language. She really tried, even with his family, to communicate in Spanish. Spanish is not her native language. She's not going to sound fluent, but she did a pretty good job for someone that has no personal ties. I just think it's just so cruel and mean. Obed was like, I told you enough. Like, I warned you then, but I didn't want to be the cause of your divorce, the cause of your heartache. And I get that. Like, that must have been a really hard position as her friend because obviously Chantel was really deep in love with Pedro, and I think that would have honestly affected the relationship, right? Like, if he would have told her too much and she stayed with Pedro, like, could they be friends through that? So I get, like, that was a really difficult position for both of them. As they're talking, Chantel just looks at him and she's like, he didn't write his proposal to me, did he? And that was such an interesting question for her to ask. And that made me think that she might have had this, like, suspicion the whole time. Apparently, Pedro proposed to her in writing. It was like in this piece of paper, and one side was English and one side was Spanish. And she was just like, it was very beautiful and she was so in love by it. But now she looks back at it and she's like, it didn't sound like his expressions. And Obed confirmed that Pedro did not write that proposal. And that completely wrecked her because she valued that piece of paper so much. I mean, she had it in a frame when Pedro came to America, and like, she just believed that it was a symbol of their love, and she cherished it. And when they were having, the fallout of their relationship, she like brought it out to him apparently, and she was like, this doesn't mean anything to you, and apparently he didn't care. And now getting that confirmation that it wasn't something that he wrote from his heart, yeah, he doesn't care. Like, it's insignificant. And that again just sends her on a journey of like, wow, everything that we had was fabricated by my imagination because it wasn't real. Oh, I don't wish that on anyone. I feel bad for Chantel because I feel like, yes, the confirmation of all your suspicions, like, part of it does feel good, right? It's like, yeah, like, you're not crazy, like, you were right to feel those things, like, trust your gut. But after that feeling of like, being vindicated leaves, it's just pain. And I feel like, I'm sure, I mean, I've never been through a divorce, but breakups have been gnarly enough. I can only imagine just like her wound is just open and raw. Like, whew, I'm like, when does the healing begin? Because she's still dealing with Pedro with the house things. Like, I'm like, this is still very much her present. And as good as it is probably to get these confirmations, I'm like, it can't be good for her healing journey. So finally, the next scene is of Lydia confronting Scott. And y'all, buckle up. So he's like, hi, Lydia. And he tries to hug her and she immediately rejects his hug. And she walks in and she's like, hi, Scott. And she pulls out her handy dandy translator. Because remember, they cannot talk without it. She finds the video, she puts it in front of him, and she's like, explain, explícalo. In Spanish, she just keeps saying, explain this shit to me. He tries to walk away, but she's like, no, watch it, watch it. And he's like, no, you're crazy. You had people watching me. And I mean, Nicole technically was the one that had people following you, not Lydia, but she has this proof. He calls her crazy, and this is when he starts reading her for filth, right? Because he's like, Pedro's always going to be single, Nicole's always going to be single, and you're always going to be single because y'all are crazy. I mean, I have said this. I feel like they all terrorize each other's love lives, that it's like they're never going to be happy. They don't allow each other to be happy. But Lydia is, she's hurt, right? And I don't know what the terms of their faux relationship is, but clearly she thought it was exclusive. He doesn't think that. She's like, this was supposed to be your second chance, but you're showing me that you are nothing but a cheater, a liar. And then, honey, she goes below the belt, and it just gets lower and lower, back and forth. She goes with the translator. She's like, you're ugly, you're fat, you're not good in bed, and anyone that dates you is going to have STDs. Very interesting given the fact that she has spent the last 2 nights with him. Like, let's not project insecurities. Let's not, But mind you, she says all of this in the translator, and then once she's done, she's holding it and just watching his reaction as he's listening it back. It's very interesting, because she's like throwing these insults and pausing. It's weird. So he's like, oh, you want to go there? Let's go there. So he's like, well, you just lay there. You haven't had sex for 12 years? And it shows. Then, you guys, he sticks the dagger deeper. He goes, Colombian sex is the best sex I've ever had. As you guys recall, when he dumped Lydia the first time, he brought over his Colombian ex-girlfriend who was done with him. But the point is, this Colombian girl was younger, and he had told Lydia, when he called back the second time to get with Lydia, he told her over and over again that he did not have sex with the Colombian girl. So now, this is like confirmation for her that he is a liar, that he did have sex with his Colombian ex, and that he lied just enough to get Lydia to have sex with him. Messy. And so Lydia's listening to this and she's like, well, if it's so good over there, then why are you not there? Oh yeah, because she doesn't want to be with you. Oh, this was so chaotic. I don't like either of them, but they gave us some reality TV gold. This is the chaos that I want to see between them. I don't want anyone being mean to Chantel. I don't really care for anyone being mean to Pedro. But these two, they can fight to the death. It was just insult after insult, juicy. Again, Scott, he's here to stretch his TV time, but he did say something that I'm like, you're not too far off. He's like, Lydia on her own is okay, but when you mix her with her gremlins, Pedro and Nicole, they're terrible as a unit and they're never going to know happiness. And we've seen it. So no, we don't have to keep going on that, but we've seen it. And we see Lydia barge into her apartment and she's slamming doors and throwing her bag. And Pedro comes out and he's like, what happened? And she tells him everything that happened, that she confronted Scott. And again, the Oedipus vibes here. She's like, He's trying to hype her up, being like, you look so good still, like you're gonna find another guy. And she starts doing this dance. He called her a MILF. She started dancing, and I, I wish I couldn't see it. But the convo switches up when Pedro's like, Nicole called me this morning and she told me some news. They call Nicole and Nicole confirms the news that she heard from Alejandro, that apparently Alejandro has been calling her nonstop. And he told her that Karen wanted to meet him in New York, that she was going to New York just to meet him. Interesting how Alejandro changed the story, or did Nicole change the story? Because we saw with our own eyeballs that Karen was going to New York to support Winter, and it was of convenience to meet Alejandro. Alejandro wasn't the focal point of the trip, because Miss Karen already had a private investigator doing the work for her. That's just extra. Okay? So let's keep that in mind, that Nicole is not a reliable source. Apparently, Alejandro didn't meet them because he thinks that there's some hope for him to get back with Nicole. And again, Nicole is saying all these things like, he must think that. I'm like, I have a feeling that you might have dangled your relationship and that gave him hope. I don't think he just pulled out the hope out of his pocket. I think that I think that she definitely swayed him. So mind you, Lydia is juiced up with venom post-fight with Scott. So she's like, what do those people want with you? They don't want to see you happy. They don't want to see you move on. So they want to keep bothering. And so she's like, Nicole, it's time that we bother them. This is so messy because Chantel doesn't deserve whatever they're plotting, right? But I knew that this would happen when Karen got involved. And that's why Chantel was like, Mom, don't do anything extra. But Chantel has been doing this since the start of Chantel and Pedro's relationship. And the whole time, apparently throughout the divorce, has suspected that Karen and Chantel and all of them have been working with immigration to get him back to DR. So he's just over it because he's like, oh, I want to be done. Even though his actions don't show that he wants to be done, really. But in this situation, he's like, oh, like they keep trying to mess with my immigration status. Like, I'm fed up. But Karen has poked the bear in Chantel's name far too many times. And these two wicked sisters are rightfully gonna fight back. Pedro, who's made the divorce process hell, is somehow the victim in this. He has this victim mind frame in combination with his paranoia. So he's hearing his mom and his sister plotting, and he's like wiping his hands off of this plan. He's like, they're protective, they're looking out for me, so I'm gonna get out of their way while they fuck with my ex-wife's family. What do we see them do, you guys? These two go to a voodoo store. Now, if you know, you know, if you've been watching the show for a long time, the family Chantel has accused Lydia of witchcraft. And mostly just off of pure imagination, but also because the time that they visited Lydia's home, Lydia presented them with chicken feet. And apparently chicken feet is used in voodoo or santeria or, dark magic practice. And these two claim that they've never practiced, right? But they're going in and they're like, they think we're witches. Let's show them some witch action, right? So they tell the man at the voodoo store that they already think we're witches, so let's scare them. Let's send them something that's going to make them back off. I'm honestly like, I'm watching this and I'm like, voodoo is very serious. This isn't a joke. And the fact that they're kikiing and laughing, and I was holding my breath during this scene. So they get a box and they're throwing in just like different things that they're finding, cigars, different things that may look scary, things that, that the family Chantel will certainly not know the meaning of, but are cultural and they're going to be alarmed by, and they decide to get a coffin, which even on Halloween, I get scared of coffins. I cannot imagine receiving a coffin being sent to me in a mystery box. And we see Nicole writing the family's names down. I think this is going too far. Because if you know, you know. But she's writing down all of their names. And again, she's putting it in this box with all these voodoo trinkets. And she's like, hopefully this spooks them and they know not to mess with us anymore. I'm just like, girls, mission complete, because I'm Dominican and I'm spooked by it. So I can only imagine. I can only imagine how the family Chantel was gonna act, but I didn't have to imagine for very long because we see the box arrive in this episode to the residence of the family Chantel. Y'all, I was laughing so hard because before they could even open the box, the minute Karen sees that it's coming from Santo Domingo, she's already spraying disinfectant. And I'm like, Karen. And they open the box and they're immediately like, oh no, oh no. And they're clearly terrified by the visuals. I mean, it looks like there was like a mask with horns. They saw the coffin. And they were like, we've seen enough. Immediately no. Immediately no. And they take the box outside. Karen throws some gasoline on it and immediately burns it. They're like, we rebuke whatever curse you want to throw on this family. And Karen is like, I knew they were witches. I knew they practiced voodoo or santeria or something. She was like, they're like, they must have had a love spell on my daughter because that's the only reason that she stuck around with a man that made her feel ugly. And I was like, you know, yes, it might have been a love spell, but also love will have people doing crazy things. Among them being accepting less than you deserve, which is an unfortunate side effect. But y'all, Chantel is fired up. She's like, they need to hear me loud and clear, and they need to hear me face to face. So she declares right there, she was like, I'm going to the Dominican Republic. And the family's like, I think it was River, he was like, no, like, you don't have to go back there. But she's like, no, I'm going. And then all of a sudden, she's like, everyone pack your bags, because all of a sudden, they're all going, which I've been waiting to see. But y'all, it's war. They're going to war, and they're not wasting any time, because they're going to be in the Dominican Republic next episode. We see her on FaceTime with Pedro. She's like, I'm in the Dominican Republic, and I command you to meet with me. And Lydia and Nicole are shook that Chantel even was so bold to come back to the country, but it was in reaction to their little prank. We are finally getting the family face off, and I mean, I guess this is the final time that we'll see them face off because it is the final season. I can't wait till Monday. I need you guys to tell me your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss my recaps because I will be covering next week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.